Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thanks again for joining me here. Hope you're having a great day. We're going to talk about this Power 3 trade setup. While it's not perfect, it worked out very well. The execution was perfect for the expansion wave to the downside. I talked about this on my Twitter, Telegram, and Discord, so if you're not familiar, it's all the info is there. Kind of call this out early. While it's, again, not a perfect setup, it's pretty close. We had a manipulative pattern or wave up, and obviously that continuation down to this lower liquidation range. So we're going to talk about liquidation too, because there's a lot of stuff here, specifically the macro liquidation that's been mostly swept, minus some late longs at 86,000. And we can see that there's some pretty obvious divergence here with the price actions more likely to run towards 90,000. So we're going to talk a little bit more about why that short-term relief rally to local resistance makes sense, and then obviously what to do next. If in fact it does hit that level, how do we prepare ourselves for that? Let's take a closer look. All right, folks, let's take a quick look here at Bitcoin, see what's going on. We're going to double check this Power 3 trade setup. More specifically, just kind of reiterate some things there so you understand kind of what to look for. We got our local resistance here at about 89.5. It's a good consideration for a profit target if you're looking for a long. And maybe just comment below too. Let me know, do you think we're going to be going lower or higher here as of this point? Obviously, like, subscribe, and follow if you haven't yet already. If we get over 200 likes on this video, I'll make another one tomorrow. How about that? It's always my promise to you. And as we get more likes, I'll increase that number, see if we can increase the challenge for you. Obviously, it depends on Bitcoin's algorithm, but more so your interaction and obviously liking the videos, watching them all the way through. Really appreciate that. Now, when it comes to watching the videos all the way through, I definitely recommend that regardless, because a lot of folks will try to fast forward to the end or perhaps try to get the bumper sticker version. The truth is, there's a lot of caveats and gray areas in trading, so it's never truly like a one-size-fits-all. Having said that, though, we can see there's a lot of support here in the low 86K range, significantly large buy orders as you progress lower. So that tells me that we got some support there. If the price were to pull back a bit further, there's a decent chance we may see that level hit, or that level essentially bounce from there, right? Maybe a double bottom off 86,000. Having said that, when we look at the sectors here, DeFi and PayFi are both looking pretty good. Those are good sectors for the moment. Nothing super outrageous here today, but most coins, a lot of altcoins, are responding 2x to Bitcoin after we hit that liquidation flush. Okay, so keep in mind, late longs over the weekend got hit. Now late shorts are getting hit too. So it's one of those interesting things where you want to kind of watch the market and see when those liquidation levels are swept first, okay? And then you consider a trade. So had I been awake when we saw 86,000 sometime overnight last night, I probably would have taken that long position. Now, having said that, look at the last 7 days worth of liquidation, there's still a good chunk down as low as 85,700, right? So even though we saw a lot at 86,000, that's all said and done, and there's new longs here essentially at 85.5 as a rough estimate. It's kind of what that's telling us here. Having said that, though, there's more liquidation on the downside than the upside here on the last 7 days. 30-day time frame, we're looking at a pretty big number there. 85.5 is a rough estimate, more like 85.6, but that's like the largest outlier to the downside. Once that level is hit, there's a good chance that we're going to probably recover. That may not even get hit at all, honestly. We could still go up from here. But for the most part, just note there is still a little bit larger liquidation on the downside, and that could essentially swing things a bit further. Now, we do have a situation where we're in a fearish type of scenario. So obviously, that's one of those considerations to consider buying the dip, just more so like from a mentality standpoint. Not telling you to buy exactly right now, but the truth is we've had some ETF net outflows for a few days, and we've since swept a majority of that liquidation. There's a solid chance we do see a relief rally or recovery to that 90,000 range. 90,000 once more is that psychological resistance or support level. Obviously, we can surpass that at some point. Between now and then, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the backend data here. First of all, let's clarify this here, just to double check. I got some questions about Bitcoin dominance and how positive it can be when it pulls back. That's absolutely what we want to look for. It's generally a good sign. That's basically money's flowing into altcoins, coming away from stablecoin and going into ETH and majority of altcoins, right? So that's why we're seeing that nice relief rally or that recovery where most altcoins are 2 to 3x of Bitcoin today. Okay, so the key is to kind of find those outliers, those coins that are performing well. We're going to try to see that if we can verify that here today, of course, but for the most part, it's generally a favorable, normal sign here. Now, when it comes to CME gaps from over the weekend, I haven't had a chance to fill this out, but they're pretty glaringly obvious here. We do have, and we should expect some upside here for Bitcoin because there is essentially a gap between 88,000 and 89,300. So good chance we see a continuation there. If we look at Ethereum, it's roughly the same here as well. This is almost filled though. So if we kind of look, we can see 29.5 is that lower range here, or sorry, the upper range. Essentially, it's already gotten wicked out, but it hasn't closed there. Generally, I like to look for a candlestick closure. Here's Solana as well. We can see a very similar structure there, albeit a little bit smaller, but there is a CME gap for Solana as well, between 125 and 127. So I'll post all these on our social media. So if you're not familiar, I've been pretty active on Twitter X. It's been a pretty good experience there, kind of learning how to figure that out, and getting a lot more traction there. So welcome on board if you're already over there. If you're not, consider joining, because I'm posting like 4 or 5 relevant posts per day. I'm not inundating you too much with the unimportant stuff. It's only relative data here. Okay. Now, when it comes to relative data, let's look at the backend stuff here. First of all, once more on the right-hand side, this is the last 30 days worth of Bitcoin price action and liquidation. So we zoom out, we can kind of see here that the heaviest area of liquidation is pretty much gone, right? We've been talking about 86,000 for a week or two now. That level is going to get hit at some point. It did. Now is the price just going to recover instantly? Well, it already has. It's already ramped back up to 88,000. But the truth here is there's still a little bit more left to the downside. So if we do see one more leg down, it'll probably be a wick down to 85K or something like that, and then back up just based on majority of that 30-day liquidation that we looked at. Okay, so just kind of letting you know that's generally a favorable sign when you see that. It implies that a long position may be a little bit more advantageous. Speaking of longs here, we look in the middle here. This is the last 7 days worth of liquidation. So it kind of tells us that we're in the middle of the range here, but there's more liquidation to the upside at 91.5 to 93,000 than there is to the downside. Okay, it's a pretty big gap. Like 81K is the lowest point. So from a liquidation standpoint, there's not a tremendous amount more to the downside, at least in the last week's worth of trading. Okay, so there's that, right? That's a good factor. We look at open interest. We want to recognize once more that 88,800 is that local resistance for us, and 90,000 respectively. So we're in that resistance range right now. So it's going to take some volume to be able to punch through that. We just got to pay attention to the volume, make sure it stays high, and money's flowing into Bitcoin. All that said, liquidation delta is tapering off from maybe about 10 billion down to about 8 billion. It's not super substantial, but that is letting us know that the bears are in control, and they have been for a little while. In fact, they took firm control over the weekend with that divergence there from the 91,000 to 86.5K. 86.5K range. Now we look at liquidation. We've already looked at that. That's last 7 days. Let's quickly understand kind of what the price action is looking at here, and we'll take a look at some altcoins next. So on the daily time frame, something I want you to recognize that we're still not bullish. So try not to get too ahead of yourselves. We do have some hammer downs. These are not the most fantastic candles that we're looking at, but we're consolidating in our previous low range of roughly 87,000. So the longer we can spend there, the more likely we are to bounce or pivot from here, because once more we kind of see this little pattern here forming where the price is more likely to bounce. Now, it doesn't mean we're just going to go to 95 or 100,000, but I do think 90,000 makes a bit more sense. But we do need to reclaim 88,000 first. That's kind of that point of control for Bitcoin. We wicked up there a little bit ago, pulled back down. But generally speaking, the daily time frame is not super bullish. There's a lot of resistance above us, specifically accumulating at 90,000. So if you're going to consider a long, which we're in a long on our community here, the concept is to secure profits before 90,000, right? Make sure you do that, because obviously there's a lot of resistance above us. Locally, we have our point of control at 89,500, so that's an area to pay attention to. 90,000 as well. If we look at our shift here, we can see the money flow index and the RSI bounced off that 20 to 30 range, but it's still kind of tapering off. We have good momentum from the downside, nice little bounce here from RSI or stochastic RSI, but still nothing super substantial letting us know we're going to go straight up here, right? So we got this little descending trend. Until we can break this this lower high, lower low pattern here, there's a good chance we may retest the low 86K range. So just be mindful of that. There's a solid chance we do see that here just based on the local price action. I'll send out a playout chart kind of explaining more so what that looks like. But for right now, it's probably best to expect a little bit further downside with a bit of a relief rally or recovery coming soon once the price gets overextended again. So there may be one more last little liquidation sweep there. But right now, at this point, it's kind of a coin flip. So let me know. What do you think in the comments below? Are you flipping the coin up or down? What do you think is going to happen next? Love to hear it. Thanks again. Quick heads up to our traders. We got a 15% discount on trading fees if you use my link to register through Bitunix. Links down below in the description. All right, folks, let's take a quick look here at Ethereum, double check some important stuff here. Specifically on the lower time frames, we can see this perfect execution of this lower liquidation range. We'll take a look at that here actually right now as kind of a baseline of where Ethereum is at here. So first of all, we got our point of control at 2,900. Mentioned that was a previous support range for us until that was lost. Bitcoin ran to 86,000 and hit all this perfect liquidation. Look at how perfect that is. Man, that is just uncanny. I really wish I'd been awake for that. Unfortunately, I went to bed early last night and missed that opportunity, but for the most part, excellent for those who were able to get in at 2,800. Congratulations on that. Now, when we look at the liquidation delta, unlike Bitcoin, it's tapering off quite significantly. So Ethereum is showing a lot of strength, likely to recover. We do want to see a closure above 2,900 today before maybe considering a long position, just based on the simple fact that there's a great chance that that level's holding everything in place, right? Basically that new resistance for us. So closure above 2,900, I think, would give us a good signal to consider going higher. But between now and then, if we look at the side-by-side with Bitcoin, we can see Bitcoin's establishing lower lows into just a slightly lower range here, and Ethereum is still essentially making higher lows. So that's a very good sign. Ultimately letting us know there's a good pairing between Ethereum and Bitcoin, and that the likelihood of surpassing 2,900 is higher under the impression Bitcoin doesn't pull back, right? So ETH is looking quite strong here. I think we're going to probably see that $3,000 mark here retested, or at the very least, the local high of 2,950 as the next step. Let's look at the charts here quickly just to kind of recognize where we're at. And I just want to kind of reiterate and reaffirm daily time frame still looks terrible. There's nothing good here. We got a lot of confluence with moving averages at roughly 30.50 and then that point of control at 30.20. So the 3,000 to 3,050 range is a heavy resistance. If you're going to take along with this coin, make sure you secure profits between now and then. It's a general recommendation. But overall, ETH is a pretty strong coin here at this point, showing good resilience after sweeping that lower area of liquidation. And I would expect further upside from this coin. It just looks like it's a very strong coin for the moment, and that's going to be interesting to see what happens. I want you to let me know, maybe comment below. I think some of our traders in our community are trading Ethereum and Solana. I want you to comment below and let me know if you are trading this coin. What are your take profit targets? All right, folks, take a quick look here at Solana, kind of see where we're at. And we can see this descending trend still hasn't been broken yet. So just be paying attention to that, of course. We can kind of close above this local, the local high, or sorry, correction, local low of 126. That may signal a breakout or a continuation higher. But between now and then, we want to presume that'll be the new resistance for us here. So just kind of a range to pay attention to. The previous low range here, essentially the new high range of 126 to 129. Just kind of throwing out that loose estimate there. That's going to be the resistance range we want to pay attention to. Okay, so I'd prefer to see a closure of 129 or higher to kind of just reclaim that level and to be back on track. Between now and then, it's probably best to presume that we may be kind of stuck in this stupid range of 120 to 125 as a rough estimate. Okay, let's go ahead and double check the lower time frames, kind of see where we're at, and go from there. So let's pull up the right charts here for Solana, and we can see that Solana's looking very sharp here, doing very well versus Bitcoin. Not to say it couldn't still pull back, it certainly can and probably will, but the likelihood is lower just based on how much strength we're seeing in this coin. In other words, higher highs for Solana, where we're seeing lower lows for Bitcoin. That generally is a bad pairing for Bitcoin, but a good one for Solana, and ultimately something you want to consider investing in. So generally speaking, positive signs here right now. When we look at the overall circumstance, 120, open interest 122 to 126. Those are kind of two areas to focus on. Liquidation delta is shifting bullish, but it hasn't quite done so yet. It's reaching break even. Typically, that's a sign of reversal or early sign. And we look at the last 7 days of liquidation. All local liquidation is fully swept, minus 130 to 133 for the upper range that's left remaining. So ultimately, further upside makes more sense for this coin. Let's go ahead and double check the daily time frame, kind of see where we're at. So we're in a kind of a descending type of triangle channel here. Generally speaking, these can break to the downside. They generally do, but that requires multiple retests. We don't see that even happening just yet. It's very early. All that said, though, daily time frame does reaffirm and reiterate resistances above the price. Not a lot of confluence below outside of this local support at 120. So it's kind of a round number. Obviously, we closed a little bit below that level, but for the most part, we can see multiple attempts to break 120, and we still have yet to close firmly below that. So that suggests that 120 is a solid consideration, either A, for a long. Obviously, in hindsight, those who took a long at 120 are in good shape, but maybe we see a little retest there, potential double bottom. That would be a good consideration potentially for a long. Hypothetically, obviously, a lot of things could change between now and then, but for the most part, that's ultimately what I'm going to be looking for, either an entry at that level or possibly the inverse as well, for maybe, again, a short in the 130 range. So let's go ahead and pull up the fibs here and just kind of see roughly where, if we have any confluence there. We got our 0.5 fib at about 132. We spoke about that area before. That's where our 200-day SMA is at in the 4 hour. There's heavy confluence there. So heaven forbid we have difficulty kind of ranging here and then we inevitably break higher. If that were to happen, once more breaking this local range here of roughly 126 to 128, that's going to be the area to pay attention to. All right, that's kind of our local resistance. So if you're going to insist on a long for Solana, I'd maybe wait for a slightly lower price point, see if Bitcoin claims that 86,000 range. And if so, then we could see that recovery here to the upside. But for the most part, Solana is looking decent on the 4-hour time frame, but hasn't fully broken bullish yet. Once more, reclaiming 50 on the RSI is also a good step in the right direction, which we don't see that yet. However, the long story short here is there's a significantly positive divergence here, or convergence rather, with Solana versus Bitcoin, and this is ultimately a good sign, right? Keep in mind, altcoins are absorbing market dominance from Bitcoin right now. So if that dynamic shifts, we will start to see Bitcoin absorb that and altcoins come down. That could happen as well. So just be aware of that. It's not like the perfect situation. Probably best just to wait for a closure today. We want to see 87,000 or higher for Bitcoin at the very least, preferably 88K. Okay, so those are just things to kind of look for. Either way, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Why don't you comment below? Quick heads up to our traders. We got a 15% discount on trading fees if you use my link to register through Bitunix. Links down below in the description. All right, folks, quick look here at SUI, kind of see what's going on. Just to clarify, we're still in a descending trend, so don't get ahead of yourselves. Don't think that we've broken out or broken bullish by any stretch. We're still in a position where the price action is still likely to continue lower, okay? Or at least breaking that lower high pattern is a very important start to transition, if you will. We got our previous low range here of roughly, let's see what that number is. Was it 146? That's the area to pay attention to. So closing above 146 to 148 with previous day closures and the local low here on the 4-hour, those are areas I'm going to be paying attention to. SUI is looking better than Bitcoin here, but it does look like it wants to drop off a cliff if Bitcoin were to pull back. So just be mindful this coin isn't looking like super amazing, but it's also performing well versus Bitcoin or better versus Bitcoin, and that's a positive attribute. Looking at SUI though on the back end, resistances to pay attention to 147 to 150. Once again, that confluence area of 145 to 150. We see a lot of resistance in that area. Having said that though, liquidation delta is tapering off, unlike Bitcoin, which is good, kind of letting us know there's a potential early shift in momentum. And if we were to break through 150, there's a good chance we see a push to 155 to 160 based on a local liquidation. Even 165 is a possibility. Looking at the daily, to kind of clarify here, still uber bearish on this coin. Most coins are looking like this right now, so don't take any offense to that. And we look at the 4-hour time frame, we are in a descending trend, of course. We're running consistent with that 20-day SMA. So once more, reclaiming 150, I think, is probably going to be a good step in the right direction. There's also that point of control here locally at 151, 150 and some change. So once more, we got just a ton of confluence in this range here, kind of just letting us know that's probably the resistance range for us here, okay? So 146 to 150 is resistance. Whether or not you want to consider shorting that level or wait for that level to be broken is up to you. Both scenarios could play out pretty well. It just depends on what kind of trader you are. But between now and then, careful trading SUI. This coin doesn't look super strong. There's other coins that are better choices here today. All right, those are my thoughts. Why don't you comment below? Let me know what your thoughts are as well. All right, folks, quick look here at XRP, kind of seeing what's going on. Unlike a lot of other coins, XRP has broken its local descending trend here, or at least its semi-local descending trend. While descending trends are just lines in the charts, they kind of let you know that there's been a shift in momentum, a shift in power, effectively, by establishing a higher high and a higher low. So while it's not perfect, definitely a good sign. When we look at the lower time frames, it's moving a lot better than Bitcoin is right now, and this is a good sign too. Expecting Bitcoin to push a little bit higher myself, I think XRP should continue further up here. Now, once more, a good pairing doesn't necessarily mean everything, but it's a good start. Looking at open interest, 190, 185, pretty much every 5 cents we're seeing significant confluence there. So we could expect 195 to be the next resistance. That's kind of the best presumption. Liquidation delta is approaching break even, probably really close to break even now, which is good. And $2 is that upper liquidation range. So XRP has the makings here on the back end of a push towards $2. Now keep in mind too, 195, we identified this previously, that's a current resistance range for us. And if we look at the daily time frame too, again, my chart's a little funky here, but for the most part, when you look at the daily time frame, we kind of zoom out here. The point of control is pretty close to, if I recall correctly, 203 or 206, maybe a little more specific, but 203 to 206, kind of that heavy range. So keep in mind, the price moves up for XRP. I don't think we're going to see like a magnificent situation where XRP is going to just blast straight to $3. I think $2 is going to provide a lot of resistance, and we're going to need to see Bitcoin above 90,000 to see XRP break that. That's just kind of the consensus there. Once again, it could be wrong, but for the most part, stochastic swinging up is an early positive sign. Money flow index is increasing on the daily. That's a good sign as well. And then the 4-hour here being over 50 on the RSI, unlike most coins, this coin does have that going for itself. So I think a run towards $2 is very practical. All right. But once more, trying to get ridiculous and think that we're going to go to the metaphorical moon on this coin just because it's your favorite coin and some XRP idiots talking about how awesome it is. Take emotion out of it and just look at things abstractly here. There's no reason for it to pass $2 right away. I think we're going to see a retest there, but likely a bearish backtest of 195 first. So hypothetically, price goes up to $2. Pulls back to 195 and then back up again. That's what you're looking for in a bullish continuation. But the early signs are here. We just haven't truly broken this range yet, so it's hard to want to say that we're going to go straight up from here. Either way, those are my thoughts from some dude on the internet, right? So thanks again so much for watching. I hope you learned something today. Comment below if you could. Let me know what your thoughts are here on XRP. Are you trading this coin? If so, where do you think is going to go next? We'll see you in the next one. Have a good rest of your day.